I was really tickled by this like fact that I learned about Baseera literally just a few days ago, and just a few minutes ago I had this idea. So we'll see how it goes. But basically, we both got into art meaning like drawing of any kind, image making, through Garfield. And I didn't know this until a few days ago. So
do you guys know who Garfield is? Okay. Do you know who Nermal is?
Less people.
Of course you don't, because that was the femme cat behind Garfield.
It's true. What I wanted to see if Baseera would be down to do is if we did a little Garfield drawing contest right now.
Do you guys like that idea? I haven't thought about Garfield in a very long time. And I have to also tell you the reason why I started drawing Garfield was not because I innately was interested in like Garfield and drawing. It was that I was interested in the stories and the storytelling. And my brother would always run to the library and rent all of the books, and he was in his phase where he didn't want to share. I mean, he's a very generous human.
Is he older, younger?
2 years older.
Okay, so it's close.
He's a generous human. You know, I know I'm being recorded. Love you, Aleem. But at the time, he was going through a phase where he wanted everything to himself. So I would sneak the books out of his bag, and I would trace them. I would trace the drawings and make my own books. And I think through tracing the books, I started creating my own version of the cat. So just my pardon if the cat looks like other things.
That's totally fine. This is all in good fun. And I also, it's just crazy to hear that that's also how you came to it, because weirdly there's ideas of familial surveillance. There's ideas of like having to take a story and make it yours because it wasn't being offered you in the first place. There's just like strange dynamics that feel like there's parallels in the work itself.
One more thing before we start this drawing contest. Garfield was a bully.
This is true.
So I was interested in the narrative of how he kind of came into the room and took all space.
I never thought about
I was really interested in Nermal's story. And I thought that I would fashion a career of what would Nermal do.
Wow.
But that never happened because
I mean, Nermal was I guess in the context of the comic, it's like Nermal was the exhausting, annoying cousin. I don't know what the relationship was, but hearing it out like as an adult now, I'm like, oh yeah.
Nermal was the intelligent, femme, capable cat. And she knew a lot, and it intimidated the more rugged kind of, like boyish charm that Garfield kind of like took advantage of. It was patriarchy.
For sure. I don't think it was boyish. He had very much old man energy to me. But
sometimes I think that boys and old men are very similar.
Okay. I can see that.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I could totally see that. All right. No stopwatch. We're just going to do this quick and see what comes out. All right. Let's go. Garfield. I mean, I drew him like a 1,000 times. I would say this is like a very psychedelic Cheshire version of Garfield. I'm here for it, though.
I think that Ajay's the CIA. He was like, did you know? Did you really draw Garfield? Let's do a contest.
That's the rest of the interview is me just grilling you.
Yeah.
I want to start in all seriousness.
Okay.
With
I am an artist, I promise.
she's an amazing artist. So this is I want to start here, but I also am curious about like this 10-year lapse. But this was your first major show in New York at Participant Incorporated, and
It's Participant Inc. You know.
Participant
I know
Inc.
that you like long words, but
I'm gonna get grilled all night. So, among other things, this is like when we first see the acoustic blankets, which we'll talk about. This is the first time. Is this the first time where Braid Rage was performed?
yes.
Okay.
That was commissioned. Most of those works were commissioned by the gallery.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And how did that whole relationship start?
Actually was introduced to Leah Gagetano through Jeffrey Gibson, who I was his teaching assistant at Cornell.
Oh, cool.
And he was doing his show at that time with Participant. He had just received a creative capital grant, and he was working on his solo show. And in a way, even he's so big, you know, in our minds, but in a way, like that was one of his first shows.
Right.
So he was like, you know, in due time, you know, I'll introduce you to, you know, this magical person. And I was like, I'm going to jump the gun here and just go meet her. So I went out to a show that she was doing. I saw Jeffrey's show, introduced myself to her, and brought her over to Cornell. And so we kind of started a friendship and
very cool.
kind of a work-life relationship at that point. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it developed over a period, and then
Yeah.
like through those conversations, like
Mm-hmm.
was she in your corner from the start?
Leah's in every artist's corner.
That's
But
so
I have
nice.
to say that when I was in grad school, I had like Xerox cutouts of horses' behinds. I was thinking about a fake book of like archiving. I refused to paint, but I was painting. It was a very interesting time period for me, and I'm just really lucky that I did it off-site, because Cornell is not really a place that people go to be artists.
That's
My bad.
it's not like one of the super well-known MFA programs, but I do think to me what's interesting about it is that like I think a lot of people in MFA programs get a lot of attention before things are fully cooked. And I think sometimes it's nice to just be away and like have some time for things to marinate on your own time.
I didn't really necessarily know. I know this sounds like it sounds as goofy as me knowing how to draw Garfield, but I really didn't know about Yale, and I didn't even know what a tenure track position was when I got into Cornell. My dad, on his like last days of health and wealth before he went to the cosmos, right? He died. He was like, how did you get into Cornell? Because I was like failing out of every institutional interaction I ever had. Like elementary school, I was put into a locker because they let you do that back then to discipline you. They put you in lockers.
Oh my God, wait, the administration put you in a locker.
And we'll talk about that later. Over drinks. And then, you know, in college, oh gosh, like failed out of that. I actually failed out of grad school too, but I got my papers, and I'm a professor. I'm a beloved professor, in fact. People like me. I'm very good at what I do. But what I'm trying to say is I really didn't understand this world, even at my ripe age of 30-something, when I entered into grad school. I was really happy that I could go to a school that I didn't have to pay for, and in fact, they paid me a stipend because I did a tenure track, or because I did a teaching assistant.
Right.
And then I learned about myself. I was invested in learning from Iftikhar Dadi and Salah Hassan, Salah Hassan started the first Africana study department in the country.
Wow.
And Cornell is oftentimes looked upon for think tanks because it has created academia for a lot of, indigenous studies, South Asian studies, queer studies. It's an incredible school. So instead of learning necessarily about contemporary art, I was trying to figure out where I fit into the world.
No notes. That's just such
and then
a
there
great
was Leah,
thing.
because I know that was that was supposed to explain the whole Leah
No, but it's
thing.
just so grounding. It's so grounding to hear that, like, that was the cultivation of that journey. Like, it's it didn't come from a place of like being hungry about an art world. It came from a place of just really seeing this place as a, almost like a temple of scholarship.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was a temple of scholarship. I was very hungry about learning about me.
And
not me as in Baseera Khan, but me
but
as
where,
in,
like,
where am I? I
Yeah.
know I exist, and I know there's a ton of me out there. So where is that?
so what was the first thing that really connected for you? At least in, maybe let's narrow it down to like visual culture.
Okay, I was gonna say all the Martinican writers and
Okay.
like I was kind of going on the, like, I'm gonna be a theory militant person.
Cool.
And I'm kind of not that anymore because I really like clothing and I like champagne and pizza, that kind of stuff.
Sylvia Wynter was a dancer and a poet, and like she was a star. So I think you can do both.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. We're trying to create these unique identities so it can be co-opted by capitalism. So the question is, again, please.
I've forgotten. The question was, okay, you said the Martinican writers, so we're talking Césaire. Everything's falling out of my head.
Yeah, so you were asking me what was the first moment where I kind of got into the contemporary art world, thinking about the visual, like what compelled me in grad school. Actually, the thing that compelled me was Michael Asher.
No kidding.
And that's not visual. It's an idea. It's a spin. So I was really interested in the spin. So even if I'm making these beautiful paintings that, like, ooh, yummy, like, look at these colors, it's the spin for me. It's the storytelling for me.
Why do you say spin?
Okay, so Michael Asher, I don't even know what he looks like, but he did this project in Chicago where his job was just to take a sculpture out from the front of the facade of like a museum and place it in its sort of antiquity instead of having it represent what it means to be American.
Okay.
So he was trying to, take away a symbol that's sort of, it's not oppressive. It's just that, when there's too many representations of a certain kind of figure. I'm basically trying to explain, like, when there's too many white dudes that are cool, that are monuments, right? Or they're not cool and they're monuments. There's an oversaturation of that brand. So what he was like, let's take this oversaturated brand of this white man and put him back into like a room in the museum where it belongs and give the front of the space kind of like a new look.
Okay.
Something that's more contemporary, something that's more like the likeness of what Chicago is.
But what's interesting to me is that you're using language that's like couched in PR, that it's not like decontextualizing, or it's not like art historical language, it's spin.
No, I'm using Creole. I'm using what Amy Césaire taught me. Because again, like, I woke up in grad school. I learned how to be a part of the art world kind of in grad school. So the most important lesson I learned is how you tell the same story. So noticed I didn't diss anybody. I just said there's an oversaturation of a certain kind of brand, which would be a white man. And so we want to let some love in, some other kinds of different types of people in Chicago, right, that live there. So that particular project that Michael Asher did was really important to me. It wasn't really PR talk. It was a kind of deconstruction of an English or French language, which is what Amy Césaire was trying to do, is not fight physically, but kind of like intellectualize the language itself. And I'll give you an example. In a description through creolity, and something that Amy Césaire would use as an example would be, one version would be like, there is a mansion on the hill. There's a mansion on the hill. Then he would say, instead of saying there's a mansion on the hill, you can say, there are 13 bathrooms on the hill. Does that make sense? So instead of saying there's a mansion, there's this legacy and this historical building that I should bow down to, I'm explaining something very specific, like there's 13 bathrooms in that structure on the hill.
Right.
And it's a way to just deconstruct and sort of like level out the kind of like grandeur of language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's different than saying there's like 7 staircases or 14 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms.
13 bathrooms. And what do we do in the bathroom? I mean, we realize ourselves. We look in the mirror.
Wow. Wow. It keeps going. So this is, okay, you're getting to know yourself. You're getting to understand what these different shifts in language can do for you. And I mean, in thinking about kind of that relationship of spin and this performance, I mean, the first person that came to mind for me was Matthew Barney. In terms of thinking about kind of, so there was an earlier project of Matthew Barney's called Drawing Restraint, where setting up athletic restraints to then make a drawing was kind of the conceit. With this performance, there's a whole lot of other things at play that complicate that kind of, I don't know, the blankness of that situation. For one, the casts of your body. So there's 99 casts of your body that have gold and silver chains in them. And you're traversing them through these braids. And to me, I think one of the things that you said about this that I thought was like just so nice, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, is that it's a piece about economies that masquerades as identity art. And that was really, for one, I feel like it was such a different moment. I'm curious, like, would you want to make something that masquerades as identity art now, and what that means? But also, like, how did that whole process come about in terms of like thinking through this performance and thinking through like, this is the way I want to tell this story about these economies?
Okay, so the Matthew Barney part. People in their 40s didn't really grow up with the internet, or did not grow up with the internet. And then at some point in their 20s, they could choose to be a part of the internet, right? I was really into music and networking through the music scene in Denton, Texas. So any chance I got, I went through the portal, which would be a window in my bedroom. I'd sneak out, I'd, change my clothing, and I would go and see all these bands play in all these different, they call them manners, because they were like squatters. There's a lot of squatting that was happening. It was pretty cool. It was very Berlin kind of squatting, you know? They were all in school, but they were squatting homes, abandoned homes. So one of the parties, there was this artist who was a conceptual artist. He had just graduated and he was on his way to New York, and he was going to Columbia University. So I was like very in awe. I was like, what are all these things? What is Columbia University? And he sat me down at one of these musical events, and he was like, do you know who Matthew Barney is? And I was like, who is that? You know, like, do you know what Creme Master is? And so he walked me through what Creme Master World was. I think he had done Creme Master #1 at the time.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I got locked in. So there's certain artists I locked into.
Yeah.
Because I was at the right place at the right time. You know, it's like that. So in terms of the next question, which is...
So you're locking into Matthew Barney, and
right.
then...
would I ever make identity art? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, let's maybe just stay with the how this got generated. Like what...
Maybe I'm subconsciously trying to like avoid the question. So I don't have like a very astute answer for you. That's probably why I don't like to talk about the way I make my art, because I just had like a series of dreams. And I know that's very cheesy.
It's not cheesy
but
at all.
If you lock in, you can really kind of like understand a lot that's going on in the world, as long as you don't like become an oracle or like some kind of like
cult leader
about it. But I just had a series of dreams and the original, I wish I had shared the original Braid Rage wall with you. There was like a massive hole on the back wall with a huge braid coming out of it.
Oh, wow. When
it came to the time of actually creating this wall to climb, the founder of Participant was kind of like, I don't think we need a glory hole. Let's just stick to this and we can double back on that in your next show.
Interesting.
So there was a lot of like, I had the privilege of working with a great curator.
Yeah.
A great scholar.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of locked into the idea of a collective self. I was really interested in the language, of course, which is like no corners. No curves. I want to use the word corner, not curve, because I was thinking about how like the femme body enters into the museum space either naked, drawn naked, or had to sleep with somebody and they had to be naked. So, so I was just, that's not my language, right?
Sure.
It's the Guerrilla Girls. But I was kind of thinking about the language of which I would kind of like make this work, and I didn't think about putting in the chains or the hypothermia blankets or the hair at first inside of each one of those objects, but I was kind of thinking about DNA and how we're all sort of we're all disconnected through levels of economy that have happened since the biblical age.
Since the very
so like India was a part of Africa at some point that broke away, for example, or First Nations came in from Northern Europe because that part of the world was connected. So I kind of just thinking in those really like kind of I'm thinking about how if I am doing anything, I'm kind of doing it because I wonder what capitalism would be like if it was still a money-making machine, but it wasn't like exploiting and extracting all the time from a certain kind of person. And it wasn't sneaky. So the sneakiness of making money off of someone that looks like you or me or anyone in this room, it's not necessary, because what are you going to do with $340 trillion, really?
Do you think that capitalism can ever not be sneaky?
I mean, I don't know. I think that question can just be left unanswered.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can I just say that I'm trying to talk about my artwork, but there's just so much in my mind that comes before the actual artwork, because when I'm actually making work, I'm not thinking about anything. I can't be smart. I can't be witty, because it's such a formal practice.
I totally get that. I mean, when you're in the process of making something, I think there's a blankness that you're just doing the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah. And I don't work with sketches or research material in terms of like how something's going to look. I just have these kind of researched ideas. Then I go into the material and I'm like, what would it look like if we attached an arm? You know, I'm doing that right now in my studio. I'm making a prototype of a sculpture. I'm really interested in the material of cement all of a sudden. So I'm thinking about what the world would look like if I made a sculpture out of cement. So I'm not like, I don't have like things pinned up on the wall and like red thread that connects everything. And I'm not trying to find the boogeyman. I'm just like, I am just making work. And then if it doesn't work, I'll try something else. There's no sketch.
I get that. But when you say that you're not looking for something, what it makes me think of is that you had mentioned that P.D. Ouspensky's In Search of the Miraculous was an important book for you. And that...
Oh, yeah.
That there is a search for something. It's not necessarily like a concept, an idea, or something that's completely carved out, but there is something that you're searching for. And I'm wondering if maybe there's motivations that push you towards the things that you want to see in the world, rather than saying, okay, this is how it's going to be and this is how I'm going to sketch it out.
I think that I'm whenever I'm in the sort of system of making, like I have my casts, I have my colors, or my paintbrushes or whatever, there's like a moment where I'm seeking a surface, like a substrate. I'm thinking about skin, for example. That's always something that pops up into my mind. Either skin or textures of fabric that I grew up with. Because I didn't have teddy bears when I was growing up. I had bolts of fabric.
Can you go on?
And because my mother was worked at Neiman Marcus leather factory. She made all of our clothes. You know, our family was very much like, let's maintain the South Asianness to the max. So the bolt of fabric that was chosen at the local fabric store or later on at Hobby Lobby or whatever would become the curtain, would become the tablecloth, would become the couch, pillows would become the dress. So there was no room in the house to store those materials, so they would just kind of sit on the side of the bed. Is my mom here? It would sit on the side of the bed, and, you know, I would be hugging the bolts of fabric.
Wow.
Yeah. And there were no animals in the house, teddy bears and pictures of people, because there was some kind of like debate about being Muslim and not having representations of figures, and somehow my teddy bear became in the line of fire.
I didn't want to put such a fine point on it, but it was what came to my head. I was like, is this an anti-iconic kind of thing? Like, no animals, no representations.
It sort of was like, I think that if I had created a PowerPoint presentation of why I should keep the bear, my family would let me keep the bear.
Wow.
And I just came in from Texas last night, and I have this big, amazing family. And my nephew from Aleem, my brother who's 2 years older, he has this little bear. And I don't think he understands how lucky he is to have this bear, you know? And so that's another thing that I think about with materials, is like the kind of like, I don't take the material lightly, even if it's a bear, you know, or a raggedy bear, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, even a pair of sneakers.
Oh yeah, those sneakers, yes. They're kind of ugly. You know, it's like if you're a sneakerhead, you wouldn't be looking for those sneakers, right? But they are one of a kind.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What triggered this process in terms of, to me, when I see custom sneakers, there's class relationships, there's things that really like run through my head of like, I don't know, there's like aspiration culture to that in a way.
When I
and then
was
to see it emblazoned with what it is emblazoned with, like to say I am a Muslim on the sneaker.
yeah, well, this was coming close to the time when I was doing the show at Participant. So the show was finally set to 2017, though she wanted me to do it 2 years. Like for 2 years, she was like, "When are we doing the show?" And at some point, she just put it on the calendar.
Okay.
I think she has that problem a lot where she like endows somebody with an opportunity and they don't believe it until it's right in front of them. So anyway, I was working at an SA. I was working at a what do you call SA? It's like a charter school.
Okay.
And I was teaching photography, but everyone in the school had a brand new Apple computer, and it was online. So they all looked very intent on what I was saying, but then when I went around the room to look at the screens, everybody was on the Nike website trying to make their own shoe.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of be nimble and sort of take that into account at some point, but to get back at them because I wanted a spite shoe. So this was actually just a spite shoe for my students at this charter school. And I knew they were all coming to see my show. So I went online to make my own shoe. And I wanted to call it I Am MUSLIMA because that was purportedly the mythological name of the show, you know, all this stuff. So that's kind of how the shoe happened. It wasn't some big, oh, there's a boycott, da da da. And I just kind of was like, I'm a spiteful person. I want to have the shoe so that I can show them that I have, you know, fashion sense. I don't even know what's the word like that. I'm on fleek. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. It's too much. I kind of fell into a major thing because the shoe kind of became a representation of the spin, the capital spin, because Nike shoe in their bylaws said that putting the word Muslim or Islam on the shoe was inciting violence.
You're kidding.
That was in their bylaws.
Wow.
So that was just like an interesting time period. You know, it's 2026 now. We're all happy family here.
It's just
We all know
rainbows.
that Muslims are sweet. So it's all good. But at the time it was a little crazy. And then, you know, we didn't have a female president, which was annoying because the I Am MUSLIMA show is sort of like the mythology of it all. And you know, the first female president, and I had all these plans for programming for all of that. And then we had the other president.
Right.
So then that other president decided that American citizens who were, in quotations, Muslim, which means nothing really. Like, you can wake up tomorrow and say you're Muslim. Like, you don't have to go through any kind of rigorous induction to be part of the family, right? So so that means nothing. Like, you can't really pinpoint what's in somebody's heart.
It's a screen for racism.
Yeah, but that's why you get paid the big bucks. It is a screen for racism because, you know, there's a line. There's like Nigeria, Syria, Iran, you know, Pakistan, like all the countries, right?
Yeah.
Where we like to buy our clothes or where the clothes are made and sold at H&M. So, you know, there's like all these kinds of like ideas of distribution. Where is the material coming from? Like, there's a exploitation and what are the patterns of that? So that's kind of in the background. So if I'm making any plans, that's in the background.
Okay.
And then everything else is formal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, I feel like this is the beginning of a conversation about censorship and surveillance and how the acoustic blankets play a role in, I don't know, almost taking some ownership over that space and being able to speak from a place of not being seen and the strange I'm talking about it, and I should just put it up on here so you all can see. Okay, so these pieces on the side here are the acoustic blanket piece, and you can see that there's one hole with golden embroidery around it, and you would perform in these, which I'll show a little bit of.
I'm gonna have a glass of water while you do that.
Okay. This is.
I feel so right-handed. Am I on the right side of this thing now? Where am I right now? If I was centered before, could someone tell me where I am now?
For the voice that you know they have. That's how I feel right now.
I feel like if you had seen what happened right before, it wouldn't seem so daunting. I was reaching for the microphone, but I couldn't see myself. I was reaching for the microphone, and it was placed wrong, like we had marked everything off. It was placed wrong, so I was reaching for it, and no one was helping me, clearly, because it's a performance. So a lot of, like, the performance is spontaneity and kind of, like, you know, in the back, those voices that always come up in the back of your head. So I release those voices.
I'm going to jump to... Here we go.
Name 3 things that you did today in your blue-ish shirt.
Pause it there.
It's a vibe. This is weird. I promise it's kind of cool.
There's like playful spite throughout.
It's spiteful.
And I would say in the other documentation this comes through a little bit more, but I mean there's a handful of things going on. Like it is playful. I don't think it takes itself too seriously. I don't think the piece is like trying to be heavy for the sake of heaviness. I think there's a lot of humor in it.
But maybe like the offering is generous. So there's like, I do the spite and then I offer something generous, like the music.
Right.
I have my little music tools under the blanket here. It's like Mary Poppins.
You do sing as well. You should watch this. You can watch a different version of this online, but I think like something that occurred to me, and I think you mentioned it in some interview somewhere, that you had seen Philip Guston's KKK paintings. Like, this is a Jewish man wrestling with. Making depictions of these hooded figures. And there was something about just like seeing you walk in this kind of like hooded way that felt like your own way of reckoning with like a lot of strange ways of self-identifying and self-censoring and like removal that I don't know exactly what the connection is, but I feel like there's one there. And you can tell me if I'm wrong too.
I think that the word connection in terms of like talking to me as an artist is the wrong word.
Okay.
Because I think that because I have dreams, or because I kind of work from a place where let's just see how things go. Even now, I've been strictly just painting. Just see how things go. Let's draw a shape, right? I think that Philip Guston, again, was an artist that was very available to somebody aspiring to be an artist before the internet.
Sure.
But it was also, there was a collection at the university that I went to at North Texas. And at some point, everybody needs a job. So I was like the collections person. Like, I made sure I didn't do anything. I was a terrible employee. But one of the jobs was like these yellow sheets with people would sign up and want to borrow the artwork from the collection. So then we bring it to their department and try to hang it through this Alfred bar system that I still can't really tell you because I failed out of computer science. So the Philip Guston thing, like I had those images posted in my studio. And so the silhouette was interesting to me because it was just so confusing to see a veiled person.
Yeah.
But then I think I saw it from an innocent place where I just saw a veiled person. And then I started to understand the background of it being a kind of like connection to the Third Reich,
Sure.
or a kind of like oppression that a certain figure sees, like a Jewish intellectual who's, fighting for freedom. And it was very heavy when I figured it out, but I still kept it posted.
Yeah.
So there was a naivety of me coming to that image and that set of paintings. It wasn't because I was like an aspiring painter who wanted to rule the world with my work and use Philip Guston as my inspiration.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I don't know why my computer's like hallucinating over here, but I'm gonna go back. Yeah, here. So these kind of disco ball chandeliers.
That is a knife holder.
What?
Those little crystals that I put down on my blanket, those are knife holders. So when you're in the kitchen and you're like cooking, you can put your knife down on it.
Got it. Okay.
Not that's not important. It still looks disco-y and it's crystal and it reflects light. And I was using this green. The green is it's a machine that art historians use to check and see if a work is authentic.
Okay.
I use that to create the light.
Are we still talking about the? I'm a little lost.
Oh, it's because I saw it and you didn't. You didn't do your homework.
I guess not. What part of this are we talking about right now?
I feel like we don't have enough time to get into it. But, it's in there when you watch it. There's these objects that I pull out from the hole.
Yeah.
And I put them down and I reflect light. And there's like patterns that get displayed on the floor.
And there's a
along
mask
with the
as
music.
well. And
Yeah.
What I was
Sorry.
what I was addressing was the sculpture in the background. That I'm gonna go to the Brooklyn Museum show, where these are kind of above throughout the corridor of the museum, and I think plexiglass is a material that I've used, but I think what was so interesting to see here is that something that was so shiny and reflective was also really, specifically in this work, deeply connected to the petroleum industry behind it and like the sort of geopolitics of the material that wasn't, I think I was, the unnaturality of the material was something that was fascinating to me, but the finer point that you put on it here is really cool because it's just so, it's so effective. It's so effective because you're entranced by it. And you kind of fall under this like hypnotic spell of just seeing all of these things turning, and it's beautiful. And then there's this whole other dark system that it's also at work.
Oh, I need like another hour to talk about that material, but let me see if I can say a few things. the figure in front is a work from a series called Bust of Cannon, and it is plastic as well. It's the plastic industry. It all comes from crude oil. That's something that's very fascinating to me from like a cultural perspective, economic perspective, but mostly from a political perspective, because certain materials are ascribed to certain kind of body type, and weirdly a certain religion. So the figure is me 3D scanned and printed out in PVA, which is what I chose for the 3D printer to print out. And it's akin to a lot of the antiquities that were in the Brooklyn Museum collection, but also at the Met. So this is the Yakshi. And so I was really interested in the way that these deities are kind of, their S-curves are kind of impossible. Their like bodies are kind of impossible. And they hold all this power, but somehow they're either seated or sort of frozen onto a wall. But when they're shown in these museum spaces, you know, there's a lot of ingenuity happening within contemporary art. One of which I don't think is happening is the South Asian Islamic corridors or the Far East corridors. You know, why is it so silent? Why is it so without voice? You know, so I kind of thought that why don't I create voice for the sculpture? So if you go back to the image from the show is called I Am an Archive. It was a show that I did from 21 to 22 at the Brooklyn Museum. And that kind of bubble that's coming out of her chest is a music box. So I did also create an album that goes with the exhibition, and it was on display as well. So when you saw the chandeliers turning, when you entered into the room and you met this figure, you also got to hear the voice. And that was important to me, if that makes any sense.
It makes plenty. I mean,
yeah.
I think you've made sense the entire time.
Well,
it's such a bizarre object. Like the protrusion of the music box is so strange to me. Like it's really jarring to see in person, and it has this like oily, slick texture to it, and it's sort of cut and assembled at the chakra points of the body as well, correct? It feels like a giant, I don't know, it almost has like a leech-like quality. It's like a really aggressively strange object. I'm not saying that that's the only resonance that it has, but
it's interesting to hear what people think. So say what you want.
It really is like it's one of those objects that like as soon as you see it, it pushes your body. Like, you know, when you see something that's in a certain posture and then your posture changes, that's how I felt when I was in front of it.
I'm really glad you said that.
Okay, good.
Because posture and prostration, that's like everything in my life. I can't live a day without thinking about the moon or my body, or even though I'm a bad Muslim, but you know, it's like that stuff you grow up with. Like some people grow up in as a carny, right? You're part of a carnival. You're like, in a circus, you know.
I can't believe that's the first thing that came to your mind. It's like
I'm a really big fan of Bastian Otter as well. And I was just thinking about the previous question about grad school, and I think he was a part of a carny.
Okay.
So there's that.
Right.
But the point of the story is, you are who you are by the age of, who is bothering me?
I know. There's
it's like a specter in here. You are the age that you are by the time you're 7. You know, Carl Jung says that, I guess. So in a way, you know, I picked up on certain cues of how to be. So I was always going to be attracted to arabesque patterns, reflecting light, textures, certain colors. and then the rest is like a mirror in a way. Like, what does the museum represent you as? Do you have any power over that? Obviously at 7 you don't.
Right.
So I tried to find myself in different forms in TV, because that's what I had. I had the music box for me was the little television set.
Right.
So I was into Mr. Peppermint. I was into Pee Wee Herman. I was into the Munsters. I, Bob Ross taught me everything I know, kind of. And, the antiquities.
These are, I really like these pieces a lot.
Cool.
Because I guess it layers a whole number of things very beautifully and very simply. There's like such an economy to it. You were working with the conservators for this. You were working with, when you got to the museum, you really wanted to see like how you could handle these objects, and you were handling them with the kind of the museum staff.
Yes. So I think that kind of like a year prior or less, there was a lot of conversation about opportunities to really dig into my practice.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what? Like, no, just do this. I want to go to bed, But then, like the curators were helping me kind of really dig deep. And so there was a PDF that was circulated. I feel like really strange saying the word PDF these days, but there was a PDF, and it had like a list of all of the archives that I was interested in. So I was like, I'm really interested in, African, South Asian, and Islamic antiquities.
Okay.
So there was like a circulation of about maybe 40 pieces. And out of the 40 pieces, I kept being drawn to certain objects. What we're looking at here is an Iranian rug. I think this rug was from, oh Lord, this is being recorded.
Here we go.
Oh,
well, this
does it
is
say it?
the title, which I know just includes like the objects themselves.
That's why I did it, because
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't smart enough to remember.
That's not why.
It's an antiquity, okay? So whatever the standards are of it being an antiquity. But what I was drawn to was that the language is in Farsi, and my mother speaks Farsi. So it hadn't been translated yet, so I found that to be an opportunity. Like, ooh, I want to be the person that translates this
cool.
rug. So I was trying to get my mom in on it, and then life happens, and in this particular situation, because we were kind of doing the work at the cusp of buildings opening again because of COVID, we started just looking at the documentation, and then I would send my assistant to go and get really refined prints of the documentation. Like the official documentation became the antiquity at times.
Right.
Because if the certain team wasn't put together, then they couldn't release the object. You know what I mean?
Oh, in terms of like how it can be handled if
Yes.
the actual object.
Yeah.
Right.
So in this situation, we took a print, and I was actually able to do a lot more with the print than I could with the actual blanket. And the glass vase that you see the conservator holding, that was an actual object.
The whole experience of being on an art competition show, I really have so many questions, but we don't have time for all of them. But I guess, like, for one, I think it's what I've really appreciated about you over the years is that I think you know really deeply who you are. And I think that anybody's perception outside of that really doesn't seem to matter to you.
Oh no. What are you trying to say?
I'm saying that to be on a show like that means like that there's a lot of people that have eyes on you in a way that I think a lot of artists would find very uncomfortable, and that they would be looked at in so many different ways. as soon as you reach a certain level or a certain level of notoriety, I noticed this after like the Whitney Biennial. Like people start talking about you as like an entity rather than a person, and they can say whatever they want, in the sense that like if you were talking about Jeff Koons, you'd be like, he's a fucking hack, he's this, he's that, and you're saying like things about a person, you know, like, and
What about the senator that just passed away?
I mean, he's a monster and good riddance.
I know, but the comments though. There should be like a People magazine with that just lists the comments. You know? Do you guys remember what People magazine was like? That was the only way I knew about the world was through People magazine.
That's
when
in
I was
all the
growing
waiting
up.
rooms still. It's
Yeah.
still in all the waiting rooms.
I don't go to waiting rooms.
Okay. You don't wait. You don't wait.
I don't wait.
Anyway, what I was getting at is basically that you're on a show where, like, I think people might be concerned. They might be like, oh, how does this make me look? How does this do? And then you win the whole goddamn thing. And, like, it continues to sort of, like, build in a totally different way. What I'm curious about is, like, what it felt like to say yes to a show like that and to be on it. Because I saw this clip and I was like, God damn, she's just, like, she's so locked in. Because you were talking about how in one episode they were like, yeah, they kind of made me look like a real housewife, but you know, it's funny. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, it's amazing that you have like the sense of self to be like, yeah, there's spin here, there's storytelling here. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing to observe in the world, and that you're not so attached to your feelings about like how this could, like, oh, what does this do? What is this? How do I position? It's like, it's a totally different thing, and I admire it.
Okay. So I think of the word collage when the first thing that came to mind was about the way you're describing what I was going through, which you were doing a better job, is collage, because maybe I am a housewife. You know, maybe I am, you know, half a dozen other things, because I don't know, being like identifying as a South Asian person in Texas, in Denton, Texas, you were exposed to so many things. And the mosque that I would go to, there were all kinds of people from all over the world that would come there, and everyone was in uniform. Like everyone was in their like hijab.
Mm-hmm.
So you got all kinds of people, the collage, and I was around all of them. And because my family helped build one of the first mosques in Texas.
No shit. Wow.
And they still remain to expand it, and they are very much involved in the theology and all that. And so is their family. So it's like when you're around that many big personalities, but they're all in one uniform, you start thinking in a way where like everything's the same. And I don't know if the word disassociate is the right word, but when I'm performing, or even right now, I feel like a little disembodied. Like I could say anything, you could say anything, I don't really care. Because maybe I do have a strong sense of self, but maybe it's also just that I feel like everyone is this too, but maybe you just haven't figured it out yet.
I think that takes us back to the beginning, where it feels like the way that you think about identity is not like it doesn't minimize or close an operation, it opens it. It's like, well, you're talking about hundreds of millions of people when you're addressing particular structural things, or like just being Muslim means that like you're already talking about a massive population where we're not separated by these things. There's like joint struggles, there's joint ways in which we all participate and operate under these extremely oppressive conditions, and like, why not see ourselves in one another?
Thank you. Maybe you should be the mayor.
No, we have a great one.
Okay, we do.
Where
is he? Why isn't he at this thing?
I want him to sit in this chair at some point.
Mom Donnie, why aren't you here? Anyway, I'm fine.
Um,
He's like one of those people that are kind of like overexposed.
well, I mean,
Like-
he's the fucking mayor.
I know, but does he have time to do his mayor? Like he's like always on TikTok. Anyway, go ahead.
He's doing his thing. He's doing his thing. I think maybe there's like, even in researching for this, like Baseera has so many bodies of work and she's done so many different things that I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no way we can do this in an hour.
But don't say that because this is being recorded, and I do want representation, and I want to be a successful capitalist, a conscious capitalist. You know, like I want those things. Like I want to provide for my family. I want to, you know, buy people dinner, and you know, I want to get my cat anything it desires. You know, so don't say bad things. Like I'm
these are all-
fine. Like
these are all great things.
I feel like there's lines
Yeah.
that you could pull together so that, you know, people will want to show my work.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Well,
Don't make them scared.
We'll make a. All I can say, I mean, Baseera is a pleasure to work with.
No.
Everybody give it up for Baseera Khan.
I got through it. I was like, I got here and he's like, I got a great idea. Let's draw Garfield.